Good morning, colleagues. We meet today in unplanned, unexpected and rather sad circumstances to debate a motion of condolence following the death of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. In a moment, I'm going to ask the First Minister and the party leaders to lead us in their contributions. But before that, I wonder if we can begin, if I may ask you all to stand and to join me in a 1-minute silence. Thank you, colleagues. I would now invite the First Minister, if I can, to move and to speak to the motion.
Presiding Officer, the tributes paid to the Duke of Edinburgh over these last 3 days show the affection in which he was held here in Scotland, across the United Kingdom and indeed around the world. On behalf of the people of Scotland, I express my deepest sympathy to Her Majesty the Queen, who is grieving the loss of her strength and stay, her husband of almost 74 years, and also to the Duke's children and to the wider royal family. Of course, before he became the public figure so familiar to all of us today, the Duke of Edinburgh had already led a life of distinction. Like so many of his generation, he endured difficulties and faced dangers that generations since can barely comprehend. As a naval officer in World War II, he was mentioned in dispatches for his part in the Battle of Matapan. In 1943, his courage and quick thinking helped save HMS Wallace from attack in the Mediterranean. And during a 2-year spell at Rosyth, he was responsible for escorting merchant vessels on a route known as E-Boat Alley because of the frequency of the attacks from German vessels. For these contributions alone, he, like all of our veterans, is owed a significant debt of gratitude. The Second World War was, however, just the beginning of the Duke of Edinburgh's life of public service. From 1947, he was the Queen's constant companion, and from 1952, he was her consort. As has been much noted in recent days, he became the longest-serving consort in British history. That role in a constitutional monarchy cannot be an easy one, particularly perhaps for someone who is spirited and energetic by temperament. And of course, he faced the additional challenge of being the husband of a powerful woman at a time when that was even more of an exception than it is today. That reversal of the more traditional dynamic was highly unusual in the 1940s, 50s and 60s, and even now isn't as common as it might be. Yet the Duke of Edinburgh was devoted to supporting the Queen. They were a true partnership. Indeed, like First Ministers before me, I got to witness the strength of that partnership at close quarters during annual stays at Balmoral. I always enjoyed my conversations with the Duke of Edinburgh on these visits, indeed on all of the occasions that I met him. And I was struck by how different he was in private to the way he was sometimes characterised in public. He was a thoughtful man, deeply interesting and fiercely intelligent. He was also a serious bookworm, which I am too, so talking about the books we were reading was often, for me, a real highlight of our conversations. Prince Philip was, without doubt, a devoted consort to the Queen, but of course he also carved out a distinctive individual role. He took a particular interest in industry and science, and he was far-sighted in his early support for conservation. Indeed, as far back as 1969, in a speech here in Edinburgh, he warned of the risks of virtually indestructible plastics. And of course, in 1956, he founded the Duke of Edinburgh Awards Scheme, which now every year provides opportunity, hope and inspiration to more than 1 million young people in more than 100 different countries across the world. In addition, the Duke of Edinburgh was patron of more than 800 charities. At the time of his retirement from royal duties, he had completed well over 20,000 engagements. Many of these engagements were, of course, here in Scotland, a country that he loved from a very early age. He was educated in Moray, taught to sail by a Scottish trawler skipper, and, as has been mentioned already, was based at Rosyth for 2 years during the war. When the Duke received the freedom of the city of Edinburgh in 1949, he spoke then of the numberless benefits that Scotland had given him. Some of his very first duties with the royal household were undertaken here in Scotland. In July 1947, just a week after the announcement of his engagement to the then Princess Elizabeth, the couple travelled here to Edinburgh. And in the years since, the Duke has been present at many of the key moments of our modern history, including, of course, the official openings of our Scottish Parliament. He has served many Scottish charities and organisations. Indeed, he was Chancellor of the University of Edinburgh for more than 50 years. Throughout all of that time, the public has held him in great affection. On that first royal visit to Edinburgh in 1947, people gathered just across the street in the forecourt of Holyrood Palace and celebrated the royal engagement with country dancing. More than 70 years later, shortly after he had announced his retirement from public life, I witnessed the warmth of the reception he received as he accompanied the Queen to the opening of the Queensferry crossing. This is an event I had known he was determined to attend. He was fascinated and deeply impressed by the feats of engineering that each of the 3 Forth bridges represent. Presiding Officer, one of the Duke of Edinburgh's early engagements in Scotland shortly after the Queen's coronation was to plant a cherry tree in the grounds of Canongate Kirk, just across the road from here. It stands directly opposite the tree planted by the Queen a year previously. These trees are just about to bloom, as I'm sure they will do each spring for decades to come. I'm equally sure that not just in the weeks ahead, but many years from now, people will think fondly of the Duke of Edinburgh as they pass Canongate Kirk and look across to Holyrood Palace. It is right that our Parliament pays tribute to him today. In doing so, we mourn his passing and we extend our deepest sympathy to Her Majesty the Queen and her family. We reflect on his distinguished wartime record, his love and support for the Queen, and his decades of public service to Scotland, the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. Above all, Presiding Officer, we celebrate and we honour an extraordinary life. I move the motion in my name.
Thank you very much, First Minister. Can I call on Ruth Davidson?
Grief is the price we pay for love. Quoting Dr. Colin Murray Parkes, the Queen was speaking on behalf of the nation when she said those words 20 years ago. Grief is the price that we pay for love. I can't imagine what it is like to be married to someone for 73 years, and I can't imagine what it is to have to get up and face every future day without them, what that absence feels like. And I think the recognition of the enormity of such a loss is what has led so many over the past few days to look past the titles and the 41-gun salutes and have such a sense of feeling for Her Majesty on such a human level. For most of us in this chamber and most outside it, our picture of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh is of an elderly man. Active, yes. Vigorous, yes. Gruff, witty, still able to stand ramrod straight. But by the very fact of reaching 99 years old, a person has been of pensionable age for decades. So for my generation and those coming after, the dashing young naval officer in his 20s, the husband made consort at 30, the palace moderniser intent on propelling post-war Britain to the front ranks in science and research and industry and technology, that Prince Philip only exists in Pathé news footage. Here was a man that was born before the discovery of penicillin, before the creation of the United Nations or the invention of the television or the jet engine. But a moderniser he was in life as well as in work. How many men in the 1950s gave up their job for their wife's career? How many headed the household, making the decisions and smoothing the way? How many walked behind their spouse or accepted that their children would never take their surname? As Barack Obama wrote, he showed the world what it meant to be a supportive husband to a powerful woman. And if that was all he had done, undertaking his vow at the coronation to be her liege man in life and limb, that would have been enough to have recorded his place in history. But it is clear that not only was he a man of huge practical ability, a decorated and talented naval officer, a qualified pilot, a natural sailor and horseman, he also had interests and passions and issues that he wanted to use his position to drive forward, and he focused on engineering, research, youth, the outdoors and conservation. And in a life that could so easily have been one shallow wave, a ribbon cut, a couple of public remarks before on to the next engagement, he demonstrated huge commitment to the organisations that he championed. He served 64 years as Captain General of the Royal Marines, 61 years heading the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme that he created for young people, 20 years as the president of WWF UK that he helped found, and a further 15 as its international president. And here, in this city and in my own constituency, 57 years as the Chancellor of the University of Edinburgh. As former Principal Timothy O'Shea remembers, while he was a huge supporter of the university's academic excellence, opening buildings and conferring degrees, he was a particular supporter of the sometimes wild celebrations surrounding the installation of any new rector, giving Prof O'Shea into trouble when one such installation was too sedate for his liking. And his association with the City of Edinburgh stretched to patronage of more than 30 organisations, including the Botanic Gardens, the Royal Zoological Society, the National Galleries and the Royal British Legion. And of course he was no stranger to Holyrood, both the Palace and the Parliament, numerously hosting representatives from the latter in the former. And at a reception for Pope Benedict's visit, seeing Ian Gray sporting a tie in the papal tartan, the Duke turned to Tory leader Annabel Goldie to ask if she had a pair of knickers made out of this. And quite properly, Annabel retorted, "I couldn't possibly comment, and even if I did, I couldn't possibly exhibit them." It is no wonder that when asked to sum up his grandparents' connection, Prince William said simply, "He makes her laugh." There has been tension in the coverage of the Duke's death, a sense of grappling with the positions that he held in the narrative of someone who could be irascible, who could say the wrong thing, much of it coloured by people's own views on the institution of the monarchy. But I think anyone who in their life fought in World War II, set up an organisation to help young people build resilience and change the course of their lives for the better, who helped found the world's largest conservation charity to save endangered species, and who gave of his time to help 800 individual charities, and who was still working well into his 90s, deserves to have that life recognised. As the Queen remarked on their golden wedding anniversary, he is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, so he would probably hate all the fuss. But to have achieved all of that, while undertaking your greatest job and duty, to be partner, friend and confidant for 73 years to the monarch, always just 2 steps behind, supporting the Queen, being her strength and stay all these years, is a life of remarkable public service. As an exiled prince, he came to Scotland as a boy, and his time here shaped the man that he would become. His relationship with Scotland endured, and it was woven into the service that he gave on behalf of the whole United Kingdom and of the Commonwealth. Presiding Officer, on behalf of myself and my party, let me support this motion of condolence into the life of service of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, and let me offer our sincere condolences to his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and to Her Majesty the Queen.
Thank you very much. Can I call Anas Sarwar?
May I associate these benches with the tributes which have been paid to His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. On Friday, we lost an extraordinary public servant who dedicated his long life to our country, as well as transforming lives for young people across the world and promoting the issue of global conservation that we all now recognise is so important. On behalf of the entire Scottish Labour Party, I offer my condolences to everyone in mourning here and across the Commonwealth, all his loved ones, the royal family, his children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and in particular Her Majesty the Queen. For more than 7 decades, Prince Philip was a constant at the Queen's side. None of us can even begin to understand the pressure of being monarch and what has been often described as a lonely job. But we know from all that has been said and written about how much the Queen cherished the support, counsel and love of her husband. And while their lives may have been different to ours, as humans we can all empathise with what it means to lose a loved one. This is hard for anyone, no matter how many years they've been shared together. But the Queen has lost her beloved husband after spending more than 70 years together. I can't even imagine how that must feel, and my thoughts and prayers are with Her Majesty in the difficult times ahead. Presiding Officer, unlike others in the Chamber, I never had the privilege of meeting Prince Philip, so I'm afraid I don't have any personal anecdotes that I can contribute to the wonderful tributes that people have heard today and indeed in recent days. But I was struck by one personal anecdote that some may have heard in recent days on TV and radio. And it came from a man called John Watts, who was jailed at the age of just 17. John recalled, "There was lots of alcohol and no aspirations for people like me," is what he said. But while in prison, he came across the Duke of Edinburgh's award, which he said gave him a sense of new direction. He camped out for the first award, not on a Scottish mountainside, but in a tent on the artificial grass of a prison football pitch. John went on to get the bronze, silver and gold award while serving a 6-year sentence. The skill he learned during the programme was cooking, and upon leaving prison, he set up his very own catering business, now helping other young people to learn new skills and find new jobs. "It saved my life," John said last week. That's just one life that the Prince helped save. There'll be countless others from different walks of life. And actually, there are millions of other young people from all walks of life who are reaching their full potential thanks to the Duke of Edinburgh's award, from the Prince's own school at Gordonston to Drumchapel High School and right across the UK and the world. And I'm sure I'm not the only parent who's helped support their children around their mini Duke or junior Dukes or their Duke of Edinburgh awards across the country as well. When Prince Philip launched the awards in 1956, he said, "If you can get a young person to succeed in any one activity, then that feeling of success will spread over into many others." Presiding Officer, following the difficult year faced by so many young people, with their lives and their learning disrupted by COVID, Prince Philip's words from 65 years ago are just as relevant today, and a reminder of the collective national mission we face in the years ahead to make sure every child fulfils their potential. In closing, may I once again pay tribute to the life of the Duke of Edinburgh and recognise his lasting contribution to our country, express my condolences to everyone mourning his passing, not just his own family, but people right across the country and beyond, and extend my sympathies to everyone who has lost a loved one in this most difficult of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I now call Patrick Harvey?
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and may I join the other leaders in offering my sincere condolences to Prince Philip's family, his friends and all those who will miss him. In this chamber, as in this country, we do not all share the same views of the monarchy or the same feelings today. It would be wrong to pretend that we did. And as a party which wishes for an elected head of state, we reflected carefully on whether and how we should take part in today's proceedings. But just as it would be wrong to give a performance of feelings not sincerely felt, it would equally be wrong to imply by our absence any kind of personal disrespect to those who have lost someone important to them, whether personally or otherwise. And this has been a year of terrible loss for the world, including up to 150,000 COVID deaths across the UK, most of them announced without ceremony as daily statistics. The toll has been heaviest on those with least. But while there is no great leveller in how we live our lives, we are today reminded that there is no extreme of wealth, privilege or status which can protect us from mortality. Jock Tamson's bairns may be something of a cliché, but in this respect, every human being is indeed equal. Death comes to us all, and every family faces the pain of loss. So regardless of our different views, respect and compassion are due in equal measure to every one of us at such times. Such moments bring pain to family and friends, and for a public figure like Prince Philip, others will share that pain to a greater or lesser degree. But for an individual, a family or a society, Death is also part of life's cycle, bringing a change of the generations. Those who come after will build on the legacy of what they have been left, but will also rethink, reinvent, and alter course. They still owe much to those who went before, who may have lived by different values. Many have spoken about Prince Philip's environmentalism. Today's environmental movement overwhelmingly places responsibility for the global crisis on the powerful and would not seek to reconcile conservation with the blood sport of the wealthy. Yet it is still the case that a debt is owed to those whose environmentalism did achieve global awareness, even if it was shaped by different values than today's. It's said that Prince Philip wished to modernise the monarchy, and no doubt in time it will again consider if it can do so, how a royal family can keep pace with the modern democratic society it is supposed to serve, and how it must show respect for the diversity of that society in its words and its deeds. Others will question whether it can, whether it should retain its place or not. That debate is not for today. Today is a moment to extend our thoughts to Prince Philip's family and to all those who are grieving for their loved ones in a spirit of respect for the equal value of every human life.
Thank you very much. Can I call Willie Rennie?
I wish to associate myself with all of the fitting tributes from today and over the weekend. I used to wear a badge on my lapel. It was a little blue man. The Duke of Edinburgh spotted it at a reception. He bounced up, demanding to know what it was. To show support for the prostate cancer campaign, I said. He looked at me closely. He says, "Have you got it or are you against it?" Then he bounced off again. The engagement was only 30 seconds long, but it has stayed with me and to be retold numerous times over the years. It seems that he left lasting impressions with so many others too. Some less repeatable than others, but so many were fun and memorable. Sometimes he offended, but I don't share the view of some that he was an offensive man. For so many, he has been part of a family that has provided comfort and stability in what can be a turbulent and intimidating world. Decades of public service through his 99 years with us. His steadfast presence when so much is changing. His support for the Queen, his wife, loyal service to family and country, strength and stay. His weight behind charities, especially the environment. All of those are good things, and we should cherish good things. My two boys have been active in the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Ali worked through all the levels to secure the Gold Award, learning kayaking, volunteering, filmmaking, all sorts of different things. Stephen, he's still working through with expeditions and cooking to our great benefit, but also mountain biking too. His impact on my family has been great. His impact on millions of others has been utterly outstanding. Learning new skills, meeting new people, showing leadership, building teams, maturing, growing. Hundreds of thousands of young people participate in the programme every year in countries across the globe. In Scotland alone, 20,000 started the programme last year. 11,000 achieved awards in that year. The reach is astonishing. It was the Duke of Edinburgh's inspiration all those years ago, and it has blossomed under his leadership, changing lives forever. That's a lasting legacy to be proud of. So to the Queen and to her family, all our thoughts are with you today. For everything, Prince Philip, I think we all say thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Rennie. Can I thank all the party leaders for their contributions? In fact, can I thank all members for attending this morning? Can I thank all those members who wished to attend but were unable to because of the restrictions that we are still observing? I shall now convey the terms of this motion to Her Majesty, and I close this meeting.